Cross the water, ma, Matilda, 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 set me on an errand. Once again, boys, Matilda, Matilda, set me on an errand. Just to show you. Matilda, this time we are eating. Just stand here. Just the windowless.
Yeah, Matilda. Well, I don't want to come on like that, but I'm just happy to be back, everybody. Welcome. If it's a couple of minutes past 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, it's time for me, your boy, The Club with Lucas here on RCE 106.9 FM. And, of course, who we were listening to were the beautiful sounds of Sir Harry Belafonte, who left this mortal coil last week at the age of 96. In fact, that man was beyond. He was a vibrant warrior, yes, of civil rights and civil liberties. He was a wonderful musician actor. He was actually the first artist in history to ever have a platinum album, not just a single. Up until that time, up into the early 50s, there had been platinum singles, but no one had ever had a full platinum album. He did it, yes, even before Elvis, y'all. Welcome back, everyone. We're good to have you back, and we're not alone today because I'm here joined in the studio by... Well, I almost wanted to call you Sir by your band name, but Bradley Loretti is joining me here, and he helms a wonderful. Well, give a shout out to yourself as well. I said, but This Frontier Needs Heroes is the name of his band, and it's the name of him as well. It's all inclusive. He's like Sade. But wait a minute, he's also the beautiful gift of Americana here, and I'm going to tell you what. I have been stoked in a land of Americana because I actually came in and met him a week ago, coming off of another wonderful session at Velvet Room here in the city. And shout out to Sir Yo Day as well. But Bruce Springsteen was here. I was there at the concert this week, and I actually made a foolish trip that I'll tell you about during one of the song breaks over the weekend. But I do want to give a mad shout out to everybody who is always a justice warrior, and Bruce Springsteen was here for a reason, and we'll talk about that, and not the fact that Coldplay has sold out more shows at Stadio Olimpica. It was a wonderful, wonderful night. Remember, as always, you can follow my ass at The Club with Lucas at Instagram and Twitter at The Club W Lucas while we're still there. Arlo, catch us live on 106.9 FM all through Catalonia and RCE.cat. all through this wonderful world. Also, remember, you can catch us with your eyes and peepholes on YouTube at our new site at RCE 106.9 FM. Now, we're going to throw on a little bit of music, but before we do that, tunes before we get to the news. Mate, somebody has remixed, it's a Sounds Red remix of a song that you did called 2012. Sir Bradley, sir, that we do need heroes in this frontier. How did this remix come about? Before we even play it, because I love it, and I'm a house techno man, so since I was a wee lad, where did this come about, out of curiosity?
Well, actually, my best friend from high school, his name is Keith Ruggiero, and we had a band in high school, and he was kind of more like the Electroclash 80s, and I ended up going in the more folk direction.
Beautiful.
And he moved to LA, and he has a band called Soviet that has toured and made albums and stuff. And I made this song called 2012, which was a satirical take on like how everybody thought the world was going to end. And because
Ended
of
up
the
being 2016, huh?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The world is always ending.
I said, cool.
Every year. And he just took the song and just totally like took it in a whole new direction, and it's super like fun, and I love it.
It's bloody fun, and it's actually, we always start our show with a jam, something that will perk everybody up while they're percolating the coffee. So we're going to do this one, and it's from our boy, and it has nothing to do with the rest of the sound of the Americana or the news that we're going to be talking about for the rest of the show. However, this is my boy, and the Sounds Red remix of his just talked about, 2012. We'll be right back, everybody. Remember, catch us live, 106.9 FM, and of course, at our new YouTube site, RCE 1069 FM.
Could be the bestest friends we could ever be. You don't believe in miracles, lest I tell a lie. What good is it honestly if we say goodbye? So lose yourself, get some help, 'cause morning 12. Nothing else. Lose yourself in mystery. Lose yourself in reality. Hang on to your sanity. Grab yourself, best damn girl you Don't get angry or confused. Revolution is coasting on fumes. Our momentum, take us there. The expectation, just too hard to bear. Lose yourself, get some help, 'cause 2012 like something else. Lose yourself in your liberty. Lose yourself in your vanity. Hang on to humanity. Grab yourself, best damn girl you can. Lose yourself in mystery. Lose yourself in philosophy. Hang on to the harmony. Why there's hope that we could hang
And it is full on real, and that was my boy and this Frontier Needs Heroes with 2012, the Sounds Red remix. Everybody, let's do a little bit of racking up our news, because you know things are heating up in reference to the mayoralship here, which is going on the 28th of May, Sunday. So for everybody who can vote, get out there and vote. And also, if you're going to be away, but you're a registered citizen who's already got their ballot and whatnot, and the initiative ready to go, you can also vote by mail, which is a new thing as of this year for these elections. So note that. Oh my God, things that happen in the U.S. happen here too. Yes. And it does feel like we're going to party like it's 2015 again, or 2019. Yeah, the top three are all literally near neck and neck in the polls. And who are that? Ada Colau, Mr. Collboni, who's representing the Socialists of Catalonia, and Mr. Mature Gramson, former highest paid government official in Spain, Xavier Trias. Don't forget, don't worry. He's no longer the highest paid government official. That is Isabel Ayuso, who makes 140,000 over in Madrid as the president of Madrid. And the second highest paid figure is, do you know who it is?
No.
In Spain? Ada Colau, who makes almost 135,000 a year. Which is interesting because our prime minister, who mandates 50 million people, only makes 90,000 as of this year. He was making about 87 last year. So the mayors of two cities make between 40 and 50,000 more than the actual leader of the country. I just find that odd. But anyway, go vote! Okay, now over on the other side of the headlines, there's also going to be, and a lot of people were reporting on this after the weekend, the long weekend, hope everyone had a good one, that there will be an influx of 14 million Spaniards, which is 30% of the country, starting over this next year and over the next decade plus, who will be entering Spain's retirement, which is, as we know it as jubilación aquí. The baby boom of Spain was actually from 57 to 77, which was the end of, the last 20 or so years, 19 years of Franco's shite regime. That was happening as all the migration was coming around. A lot of Gallegos and Andalus actually moved to Catalonia in the 50s and 60s and 70s and helped create the modern Catalonia that we have now, the more modern. Slaves created, up until 1900, but that's another story. Anyway, so that's going to be happening over the next few years as well. So I wonder when it looks like, because I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to throw you into this conversation, Rocker. Since you're also a Star Wars baby, what do you think about retirement? Because this is bringing up the complaint of retirement. Obviously, the First Republic, France, has pushed up the ante from 62 to 64 recently, and that has caused a lot of upheaval in the country there. Over here at 67, in our country at 67, what do you think the retirement age for people from our neck of the woods and of the eras would be? Do you think it's going to be 67, or do you think it's not existent?
It's never
That's
occurred.
the fear here.
Well, I'm a musician, so I have a different situation, but the thought of retirement has never occurred to me.
Okay. Same here, actually.
I think I'll be doing this until, the day I die.
Do you think
Because
it's important?
I have to, and because I want to.
Exactly. And so it's important to have an official love or trade or occupation that you really gravitate with. Would you say?
Yeah. I mean,
You can do
It's-
this
it's
forever. I
just-
could do mine forever, too, actually.
I realized about 10 years ago, I moved to Florida.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
He's okay, ladies and gentlemen. He's here now.
I do love Florida. I have a soft spot although it's a very complicated relationship.
Is that what
I
it says on your
realized there was a
Facebook
lot
page?
of older people in their 70s who were still playing gigs, and
okay.
into their 70s and 80s, and a lot of them were actually successful musicians in the 60s, and I was living in the St. Augustine music scene where Gamble Rogers, there's a very rich folk music history in that area. So a lot of people moved down there in the 70s and just
Better weather. Different
yeah.
time in the 70s there as well. It was more of a democratic state at the time.
Right. Yeah. Now it's just spiraling out of control.
It's interesting. The governor, and this was not on the news platform, but the governor of Florida has been doing a European tour and actually Asian tour as well. He was also in Japan. And apparently, as he left the UK yesterday, they said that man has no spark in him. There's something they're complaining that there's
Dead
something wrong with
inside,
it. Yeah, and that he said he shows no leadership skills in the marksmanship of only a state leader.
Yeah.
One of the guys from the parliament said. So that's the Republicans' next choice for president. No, it's not. It's actually Donald Trump. And this could indicate yet another need for rethinking over certain things. Before we get over to the United States, though, the UK. Economic reports are stating that the overall outlook for 2023 fiscally in the United Kingdom, and all brothers over there and sisters, will be on par with Russia. Okay, there are watchdog groups right now that are being summoned by parliamentary groups to study the outrageous and continued inflation of supermarkets, many often are out of stock of many things, but the goods and prices have continued to skyrocket apparently over in the UK. Obviously, this also goes back to some of the drama with the lorries and things that go back and forth, and the lack of some of that, of the ability of that because of rights and permits and things of that nature. Ojo, for example, you cannot take a sandwich from the European side, even if it's just a trucker with his lunch, into and vice versa. You know, it's so those little things have, and it's just a sad truth of the reality of things that we don't think about. You know, in regards to separation, anyway. But that has also continued the strikes of nurses all across many regions of the United Kingdom as well as educator strikes that have battered the system for many months now since the holidays. Over in the U.S., more shootings and mayhem stop. Over in Texas, where I popped out of my mother, it's hard. How am I going to address this? Okay, so a group of immigrants were living in a neighborhood, lower class neighborhood, and they were having a party or something outside. Not a party, they were having a cookout, some over the weekend, and their neighbor was out on his property shooting his gun off. And it was scaring the kids, and one of the kids was trying to sleep. So they went over there and kindly asked, "Can you please not be shooting your gun?" And he went over later on and killed everybody. Now, 2 of the younger children survived because their mothers protected them and fell over and took the blows. But 5 people, he is on the lam. And the Texas State Patrol, which I can tell you, I don't even have to. You already know. But if you don't know, then you don't know. Now you do, as to quote Biggie.
You don't want to get pulled over by
Child, no, especially when you're Mexicano or black, okay, or anything other than certain, members of society there. And they've literally admitted this as of last night. They have no leads and they have no idea what this guy is, but we do know that he had been deported 4 times already and found his way still back despite that. So yes, there is also a crisis in the area of that country, but that is the same claim that is going on in most countries. Do we need more stipulated immigration reform? Probably everywhere. In the meantime, over in rural Oklahoma, fun. 7 bodies were found on a piece of property on Monday afternoon during a search for 2 teenage girls who had been reported missing for a while. They were also reported to have been seen with a convicted sex offender. But when Okmulgee's County Sheriff Office were deployed there, they found 7 more bodies, including Ivy Webster, who was 14, poor thing, and Brittany Brewer, who was 16, as well as 5 other bodies. Again, this person apparently is on the lam, and they do not know who has committed the homicide. They think they do, but they were shot dead. The person who came and killed those poor Hondurans in Texas was also using an AK-47, AK-15. What's the one that everyone's using? AK-15, one of those AK guns. And there can be nothing. In fact, Texas, since the shooting last year in that school, Texas has loosened even more of the restrictions in guns, as has Florida and Tennessee, where more shootings happen than pretty much everywhere else per capita. But that's another story. We're going to do something else because somebody that we both really, really like and then we got to get to some chat and some live music here on our Blue Mesa live sessions today. Someone that we both really, really dig, Sir Bradley and myself, is a gentleman named Gordon Lightfoot. And he passed away yesterday at the almost ripe age of 84, I believe it was. Not as old as our star Harry Belafonte, who was but walking towards 97, actually. But I loved Gordon Lightfoot as a little boy because I learned about things, especially like novels in pharmacies, by his lyrics. I just love this man's lyrics. And was there anything that you wanted to say about that? Because you mentioned that before. You didn't know that I was going to be playing him today, and then you mentioned it.
Yeah, well, I actually went to see him play in Staten Island like about 5 years ago in New York. And I also played in his hometown in Canada, where they have like a statue for him on one of my Canadian tours.
And I can guarantee you today that statue is filled with flowers and mementos. So shout out to all our brothers and sisters who we lose in the fight, especially those musicians and people who also fought for that. And this is from Gordon Lightfoot and Sundown. Remember, you can catch the jams live on 106.9 FM and RCE.cat. And we'll be right back with this Frontier Needs Heroes, Sir Bradley Loretti.
I can see her lying back in her satin dress in a room where you do what you don't confess. Sundown, you better take care if I find you've been creeping round my back stairs. Sundown, you better take care if I find you've been creeping round my back stairs. She's been looking like a queen in a sailor's dream, and she don't always say what she really means. Sometimes I think it's a shame when I get feeling better when I'm feeling no pain. Sometimes I think it's a shame when I get feeling better when I'm feeling no pain. I can picture every move that a man could make. Getting lost in her loving is your first mistake. Sundown, you better take care if I find you've been creeping round my back stairs. Sometimes I think it's a sin when I feel like I'm winning when I'm losing again. I can see her looking fast in her faded jeans. She's a hard-loving woman, got me feeling mean. Sometimes I think it's a shame when I get feeling better when I'm feeling no pain. Sundown, you better take care if I find you've been creeping round my back stairs. Sundown, you better take care if I find you've been creeping round my back stairs. Sometimes I think it's a sin when I feel like I'm winning when I'm losing again.
It's a big subject.
It is a big old thing, and that was Sir Gordon Lightfoot, and it's hard for me not to move my neck like that. Chicken head. This Frontier Needs Heroes. Thank you, Bradley Laretti, for being here today and welcoming us here on the show and kicking us with the Blue Missile Live sessions. We're going to get to some live music later on and talk about the songs as well that have, well, inspired you. But let's go back to the nitty gritty. Where are you from originally, sir?
I grew up about an hour outside of New York City in Connecticut, the great state of Connecticut.
Connecticut.
The land of the great rivers.
The land of the
As
Bush
it was,
family, as well as it were.
Yeah.
And the current home of the KKK. But who's counting?
Yeah.
Wow.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere, folks. But no, what brought you here originally then? Why did you? Because you just mentioned Connecticut. You've mentioned Florida. You've mentioned New York. You're here.
I lived in Nashville, Tennessee, too.
Tennessee.
Yeah. Well, when you're a musician, you're always like looking for the next best thing. And for years, for the last 10 years, I was touring a lot in Europe. And
For the last 10 years.
yeah, and I think 2016, I came to Barcelona and I played a concert with Indie Keeping Secrets, which was like a local record label and concert promoter and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a great time. And I would come back, every year. And I even at one point, a good friend of mine from New York was living here, so I rented a room from him, and I lived there for 3 months in like 2019. And I was all ready to start doing the paperwork and try to move here permanently, and then the pandemic happened, which I got caught back in the States.
Where were you for that?
I was on tour, but driving it like a Swedish pop star on tour. And I was out on the West Coast when everything started closing down. And so I drove back from LA to New York in like 3 days
And stuck there.
and ended up with my sister in New York for the lockdown.
Yeah.
And
I have to ask who the Swedish pop star was because I just wouldn't be the proper journalist if I didn't ask him.
do you know Tove Lo?
Oh my God. Are
Yeah.
you kidding? Do you know how many times we played Homegirl here?
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. I was driving the
Nice
opening
person,
act.
out of curiosity?
Oh yeah, she's amazing.
Rock the house.
Yeah,
That's what I want to know. We'd love to hear that.
She's very cool.
Shout out. We're
Like,
playing you in the next month, girl.
Yeah, and actually, I don't, humble brag, but she thought I was extremely funny.
We're going out for a quick coffee so I can be the judge of No, I'm the judge of nothing. So, well, we mentioned that. So how did you handle this change of life post-pandemic? I mean, we're plumb up. I mean, there are 400 to 500 people dying a week in our country still. And so we can't front. But post-pandemic, as we move past it, do you see this full return to live music, touring, picking up again?
Well, for me, it's been just like a slow-moving train wreck still. Like, I mean,
Probably
first,
won't record that.
before I was like, touring most full-time before the pandemic, and I am not anymore. I had to reimagine my whole life. I was like managing a music venue in Miami before I finally came back here last summer. And that was an experience. We could do a whole episode just on that. Trust me.
I know. No, I do.
And so, but anyway, the reason why I'm here too is I started a music series here in Barcelona at the Velvet Room called Americana Barcelona.
Yeah, man.
Because I was like, before I was, touring full time, booking a venue full time. Because as a musician, you have to have 3 to 4 full time jobs. You're the label, the booker, the artist, the promoter, the social media manager.
And how many
And
gigs
then
weekly
you
to
have to
maintain in a typical setting?
I mean, like I would say, 3 or 4. It depends if you're on tour or if you're home.
Correct.
Because you can't tour full time at that rate, especially now. Because
Okay.
what I was doing before the pandemic was like wild and outrageous, and now I'm just like I'm too tired to do that. So I'm trying to reimagine. I think like eventually I'd like to have like a weekly gig here in Barcelona, and then I'll be like doing touring on the weekends.
Tell
around
us
Europe.
about that because right now you do have something going on with the Velvet Room. In fact, you're going to be doing something special, which we're going to get to later on as well, with somebody who's going to be making her way over here at the beginning of next month. But when you get to doing something like that, touring or playing more and more, do you feed off the audience? Or
Oh,
is
yeah,
it
absolutely? I mean, I
Okay.
can't. When you're like out there on tour and you're like driving yourself everywhere and you're like, tired. Like if the audience is everything.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're listening, if they're not listening, they can like it's like a jolt of lightning, and it feeds you.
speaking of
So
this song? There's a song that we're going to play right now that I really wanted to get off. It's actually one of your own albums. And so I hope you didn't plan to play it live. But I love this South Dakota record. What was the meaning behind that one? Like, what brought that record to be written?
well, my last album, Go With The Flow, was like I wrote after I broke up with my girlfriend in Florida, and I moved to Nashville because I was like, all right, I'm going to do the Nashville thing now. And I met some girl from South Dakota who had just moved to Nashville too, and it was kind of like the same old story. She had just broken up with somebody, and we kind of just fell into each other's arms, let's say. And it was I started off thinking that I was writing it about her, and then I realized, wow, this is actually about me too. And that's kind of how the songwriting process starts, sometimes from the specific, and then it has this general,
Completely.
Well,
But why South Dakota, not Tennessee?
she was from South Dakota.
Gotcha.
And I had actually never been to South Dakota, but there's a lot of interesting history around South Dakota and parks and the indigenous people, and which I I mention in the song, because all of my songs kind of start off with love, and then they go to the personal, and then the historical and the political, and before you know it, you're like, where am I? You know.
Well, we're going to get to that in a minute too, because that is something that we do obviously like to delve into. So, off of his last record, and this is South Dakota, and we'll be right back.
Came from South Dakota, someone tore apart her heart. So she moved to Nashville, trying to make a new start. I guess the stars aligned, just as I had arrived. Since I am an optimist, I took it as a sign. South Dakota, I already know you. Though I've never been on a jump ride, what I've seen, I really like it. And your lips just might be the right fit. I know it sounds silly, you might meet that special someone when you're all out all by yourself and you feel like you got no one. She grabbed my arm and swiftly kissed me down the street. There's no way this could be random. South Dakota, I already know you. Though I've never been on a jump ride, what I've seen, I really like it. And your wishes might be the right trick. All our friends are watching, I wondered what they thought. Love must look ridiculous to those who have forgotten. What am I to do when I dream about that night? I guess go find somebody else until we get it right. South Dakota, I already know you. Though I've never been on a jump ride, what I've seen, I really like it. And your lips just might be the right fit. Crazy horses staring at the grassland. Deadwood wagons to the badlands. Buffalo, wounded knee, black elk speaks. He stole the gold and traded the dust bowl. South Dakota, I already know you. Though I've never been on a drum ride, what I see, I really like it. And your trip just might be the right fit. And your kiss just might be the right fit.
This frontier does need heroes, and so let's talk about that, because as doing and that was South Dakota from your last record, sir. Now, we were talking during the break here how so much of, like, you left Tennessee, like Nashville's a great place for its scene, and also because it's a place to be seen as well, especially if you get into the scene. but it's in Tennessee. What brought you eventually here to BCN after the pandemic? It was just, okay, now it's time. Because you were ready in 2019, but the pandemic said no.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I was in Miami managing this music venue. And, about this time last year, I was playing at Bob Dylan's art show at the Florida International University. And the whole time I was like, okay, I'm going to manage this venue most of the year. The venue closes down in the summer, so I'll go on tour in Europe. And then let's just say things went south with the venue because it was like a bunch of Miami developers and a bunch of Miami music promoters. And you can imagine what that scene is like. It's not the most reliable people. And so I came here, and I called up one of my friends, and I was like, hey, I'm coming to Spain for the summer. And he's like, dude, I just rented a house in Ibiza. You got to come. So I got my plane ticket, went to Ibiza, came back here, did a couple of shows in Catalonia last summer, went to Catechase, and I was just like, dude, I'm done. I'm I need a break from America, And
It's interesting that you say that because you play Americana, so you keep yourself steeped in those roots, which I was saying to my brother here during the song break. I feel there's a big divide for me from Americana versus country and Western music necessarily. It's a different vibe. And people often. But you keep yourself steeped in those roots, and yet you needed that break. I find myself sometimes, if I hear the accent, which we hear more and more these days, here versus 10, 15 years ago, annoyed, especially with the amount of likes I can count. I'm always surprised about it's like, oh my God, and we were like, and it's actually transferred here where people say, it's en plan comment, where people have adopted that saying. What is it about the break that you needed from the United States? What did you feel?
I mean, man, it's just...
Because you are political in your songs, so that's why I ask.
It's very stressful,
The life is stressful there.
Yeah, it is.
In which
I
manner?
gotta be honest. I mean, they don't... we have people who are trying to impose their political views on everybody else. And,
religious too, huh?
Yeah, and they're being somewhat successful in what they're doing. You have... In Miami, one of the venue I was working at was an outdoor venue, and we used to have a game was fireworks or gunshots, and that was what was that sound? Was it a gunshot or was it fireworks? And the longer that I'm here, and the more that I think about it, it's what I would see as normal is truly psychotic. And at the end of the day, no matter what happens to me here, I don't have to worry about getting shot.
That is such a perfect... That is going on Instagram at some point in the next week. It's interesting because it's really kind of sad because a lot of people, especially one of my therapists that I follow, have been saying, it's the mental health, it's the mental health, it's the mental health. And I think it is to a point because it is mentally insane. It is a psychosis thought pattern to think that we need these protections for weapons of war, for homebodies. It's insane. That mentality is part of the psychosis. So yes, we need to deal with the mental health, but the very ability to have that thought process in a constitutional mandate is insanity.
Right.
And repeating the insanity and thinking something's going to change and it never does is the very definition of its own self. It's like the fish eating its head. Oh my God, isn't that a saying in Italian? The fish putrefies from the head, right? Mm-hmm. All right.
Well, the thing is, the problem we have in America is that we have
in the United States of America.
In the United States of America, is we have a constitution that was written in the 18th century, by white men, slave owner,
landowners.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And in Europe, all the countries here have a post World War II 20th century constitution and so. I think that's the one thing a lot of Europeans, right? Every country has a different situation, right?
Totally.
But I think that's one thing that people look at America and they're like, why is this happening? It doesn't make any sense. And it's like, well, if you think of it as 50 distinct republics, it's not one country, then it starts the chaos of it. Actually, you can do, and the logic behind how things that don't make sense actually come to pass.
Yeah.
It starts to make so. I just.
You said a lot. You said a mouthful there, but that and that mentality creeps its way into some of your songs. Now, you've been holding this beautiful acoustic guitar here for 40 minutes, and I'm wondering if you can serenade us with something, and I'm wondering if anything's gonna be political by any chance.
Well, I was do like probably one of the most important songs from my last album, which is called "How Leonard Cohen Learned to Play Guitar." And I actually wrote this song when I was living in Barcelona in 2019, because Leonard Cohen actually died right before Donald Trump got elected. Right. So when he died, nobody was memorializing him, because we were all just like, "What just happened?" Yeah. And
he
so
said, "Bye, I'm out of here." I saw that. Prince did, Bowie did, George Michael, everybody's like, "I'm out." Natalie Cole, everyone died that year.
Yeah. Well, and then I'm sitting there like watching YouTube videos of Leonard Cohen, trying to like numb myself to what just happened. And I watched this video of him accepting the Azores Prize from, the King of Spain, and just thinking about Leonard Cohen learned to play guitar from a Spanish guitar player who was traveling through Montreal, who actually eventually committed suicide, which is like the most Leonard Cohen thing you can imagine.
I need to hear this.
And then, Lorca was Leonard Cohen's
one of his
biggest influences.
Yes.
So I was sitting there in my head thinking about all this stuff, and just, I was like, I got to write a song about this. So I wrote this. It's called "How Leonard Cohen Learned to Play Guitar." Well, the poet walked into the park of Montreal. A guitar was singing a Spanish song. The scene was like Fellini, the Satyricon, crying like a Zen Spartan. Well, the poet asked if he could roll tobacco, which he would probably steal just like Picasso. Depression overwhelming his mother's home, singing sad songs she won't ever know. Now the king all wants to praise him, the girls all want to play him, a temporary thought on a cloudy night. Is it too late we missed the light? Well, all we had to do was learn 7 chords and slip into the rhythm of flamenco, dreaming of a place he'd never been before. Well, the land of Lorca proved unmovable souls. Well, poetry in the war was the first to go, when all he wanted to do was play piano and scribble down this little canción. Well, the poet that was killed was never found. Now the king all wants to praise him, and the girls all want to play him, a temporary thought on a cloudy night. Is it too late we missed the light? Well, this is how Leonard Cohen learned guitar, and listen to his music travel very far. The The source of all his inspiration was a homeless guitar player we won't ever know. Now the king all wants to praise him, the girls all want to play him, a temporary thought on a cloudy night. Is it too late we missed the light?
Oh man, that's a completely historical reference, and one of the things that I guess I do love, and I will admit that now, not just about Americana, but also about country and Western music, even Taylor Swift songs, if I admit that without throwing up, is that country music, Americana, tells a story. And music used to tell a story. Gordon Lightfoot told a lot of stories. Your song just told a story. I had no idea. And I'm an historian. And I'm a history tutor, in fact. I mean, I make my money off of some of this. So that is a beautiful story, and I did not know that at all. What inspires you with some of this stuff? When you're writing, what it moves you?
You know, I was talking to you before. My mom was a history teacher, and I went to school for philosophy. And, you know, I was sitting there one day reading Jean-Paul Sartre, all 800 pages, and I was like, you know what? Most people are never going to read this book. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to take what I, like, kind of condense history and philosophy and ideas and put them into, like, a form that people could understand. Why
did you want to do that? Out of curiosity.
I'm just a philosophical fool. I don't know why. Because I was like, you know, some of my songs can be so dense, I think sometimes, that they're hard, you know, if you don't know the whole context behind it, it's hard to even understand what I was just singing about. You know, that you have to have, and that's why when I play concerts, I try to, you know, explain the songs and the meanings behind them, you know, to give people the context. And hopefully that's like an entry point for them to, like, go further with it.
Amen.
You know?
And, well, I'm wondering if you would play us another one, perhaps, if you can.
Which one should I do?
What is the Lord leading you to?
Well, this song is I wrote when I was in Nashville, and it's called Dumb It Down. And it's about this very thing, is that where a lot of times people on the left and the right, they think the other people are they call each other names, right? Which is kind of like what a childish bully would do, not what an adult citizen of a democracy would do, right? So it's kind of like saying, like, you know, my mother is from rural South Carolina. I grew up in Connecticut, and so I kind of see both sides of America, and I know that there's good and bad people on both sides. And so at the end of the day, we have to try to figure out a way to bring everybody together.
Hell yeah.
And music is one way to do that.
Amen.
Because.
Thank you. That's right.
Well, the world is getting harder every day. People feeling frustrated, which leads to hate. To talking heads that think they are great, but no one is learning, man, it might be too late. Alright, 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 alright. Some people say that you don't have a heart. Some people say that you're way too smart. But if we all do our part, we'll all be okay. You don't have to worry, we'll show you the way. So don't dumb it down, don't dumb it down, don't dumb it down, don't dumb it down. Ignorance ain't bliss, it'll give you the frown. So I'm telling you now, don't dumb it down, 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 down. Now I play guitar, and you you fix my car? Don't you dismiss all of the parts, 'cause life is a farce, and it hurts real hard, and you won't get far. Dumb it down, 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 don't dumb it down. Don't dumb it down, don't dumb it down, don't dumb it down. Ignorance ain't bliss, it'll give you a frown. So I'm telling you now, don't dumb it down, 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 down. Woo. Now I came to this town to be part of this sound. I threw myself into the lost and found. And if I blow you a kiss, will you tell all the town? Just keep it hidden deep underground. So don't dumb it down, don't dumb it down, don't dumb it down, don't dumb it down. Ignorance ain't bliss, it'll give you a frown. So I'm telling you now, don't dumb it down, 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 down.
Yeah. Woo, child. Where can we hear you, man? Where can we hear you in the next weeks to come, please? Because also, you have something going on with a beautiful lady named Scarlett Rivera, who's going to be dropping by next month. Tell us a little bit about where people can find you, man.
Well, my next two shows, May 17th at the Velvet Room.
Hell
and then, believe it or not, really exciting news. I'm going to be doing a little tour of Spain with Scarlett Rivera. Scarlett Rivera
about
was the
her.
violin player from Bob Dylan's Desire album, and she played on the Rolling Thunder Review Tour, which you can watch the Martin Scorsese documentary about it on
yeah.
Netflix. She's an incredible woman, and we're going to be playing June 6th in El Loco in Valencia, June 7th here at the Velvet Room in Barcelona, June 9th in La Fábrica in Girona, and June 10th at El Sol in Madrid. And we might even have some more announcements coming this week. But
How did
that's
you
what we
meet
have.
Scarlett Rivera? This is great news. I mean, for the fabric of rock history, as it states.
Well, I haven't met her yet, but
How did you get connected?
I'm going to Milan next month to play the Towns Van Zandt Festival, and she's playing there. And the guy who organized the festival, suggested, "Hey, you need to meet Brad. Scarlett needs to come to Spain," and so we jumped at the chance to.
This is brilliant. If there's any way in hell we can have you back here before that, remember, folks, you can catch my brother live at the Velvet Room BCN. That's at Carrer de la Aviación, number 5. That's in Les Corts, right near the metro of Les Corts. You're going to be playing there on the 17th of May, you said, but also on June 7th with Scarlett Rivera. And this is what we do up in here. We serve you what's best and fresh. Remember, you can also catch This Frontier Needs Heroes on Spotify or Tidal, everywhere good music is streamed, Children of the Corn, and support local live music as well. Remember, again, the 17th of this month over at the Velvet Room. And thank you so much for being here. Sir, would you mind playing us out with a little ditty, just another couple minutes of something, if you would?
Oh.
And really quickly, folks, we want to thank you, everybody, because we're going to give it all the floor to him. We'll see you in a couple of weeks, in a fortnight, when we have the beautiful people who are joining us from a new play that's going to be opening up here, it's Children of the Corn. So, of course, we'll be having them here. An innocent little murder. Right now, Riley Loretti, This Frontier Needs Heroes.
Well, you can't fix all the broken things in life. You can't sit around all night crying that you've been hurt. I love to live and learn, but always make things worse. 'Cause nothing's fair in all the universe. 'Cause it's just a one mistake after the other. Make a wish and then try harder. Some people don't even bother, and that is why they're sad. Now I try not to judge, steal, or lie, but that don't mean things are gonna go right. Now I'm not one to give you all that free advice. but you gotta keep moving and leave it all behind. 'Cause it's just a one mistake after the other. Make a wish and then cry harder. Some people don't even bother, and that is why they're sad. Now falling down so many times, I don't know which way is up. Just like everybody else, I think I've had enough. Now I'm not one to tell you things that you already know, but some of us are just a little bit slow. 'Cause it's just a one mistake after the other. Make a wish and then try harder. Some people don't even bother, and that is why it's one mistake after the other. Make a wish and then cry harder. Some people don't even bother, and that is why they're sad. That is why they're sad.
This Frontier Needs Heroes, the Club with Lucas. We love you folks. See you in a fortnight. Bye everybody.